Right, welcome to another episode of the Obstacle Race Magazine podcast. We're now on episode 11, and we've got another feature-length episode for you with Richard Burley from Epic Action Imagery. We've also got Kevin Newey with us again. Hello, Mr. Newey.
Hi, Carl. Hi, Mr. Burley.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you both?
Good, great. Thank you very much. Right, Richard. So, anyone who doesn't know you, you are the founder of Epic Action Imagery. You've been around the OCR market and other photography markets for quite a long time now. You are what could be described as an OG in the field. If anyone's been to Spartan in the last probably how many years?
We're just about to go into our 11th season with Spartan in the UK.
So last 11th year, you will have had your picture taken by a team that is basically put together of amazing photographers by Mr. Richard Burley himself. Also Tough Mudder in the UK and beyond for the last few years as well, Richard. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Last year was our first year with Tough Mudder as a direct supplier. Previously to that, we'd worked on behalf of other companies.
Yeah. So basically, and then there's also a plethora of other brands that you work with, especially in the UK, but further afield as well.
Including Mud 7?
Including Mud 7, yeah, our very own Mud 7. So what we're going to do, Richard, is we're going to jump straight into it and see how much information we can get for people from you that will be interesting. First question, simple one, you probably get asked it all the time, but how did you get into photography in the first place?
That's quite a good question. I'd always been into photography as a child, and actually my only qualification in photography is a Scout's badge, which I can't even remember when I got it, but it's sewn onto a jersey somewhere in the loft. In terms of sort of most recently, I'd stopped coaching, I'd stopped playing sport, and I just needed something else to do. And I decided that photography was something I'd been interested in and wanted to rekindle that. Did a few years sort of just photographing my local football club, and then sort of bought a new lens. Had a little bit of a telling off from Mrs. Burley, and she threw the gauntlet down and said, "You better go back and make that money that you've just spent on that lens," and that was it. Started a business, and things sort of got out of hand from that way forward.
Oh, wow. So would you describe yourself as pretty much self-taught then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've obviously listened to a lot of what other people do, look at a lot of other shots that photographers take, try and work out what it is they've done, settings and things like that, and then just try and either emulate it or put my own sort of thoughts behind it, things like that.
So there's literally a huge gap then between obviously your scouting years and then suddenly just taking up photography. Did you sort of do it as a hobby in between there?
No, not at all.
Because it's quite an expensive hobby to have, like, say, with the lenses and all the kit that you need to have.
Hence the reaction when I invested in a lens, yeah. Yeah, that was quite a savage night, actually. And, but it was the lens that made the difference. I'd actually gone out to take some photographs at Histon Town, and it was a December game, so once the light went, I wasn't getting the shots that I wanted, and I had a conversation with a couple of photographers there, and got a far greater handle on things such as aperture. Went out and bought the lens that would perform at that aperture, and that's really what changed everything.
So what sort of era are we taking, yeah? What sort of year are we talking now?
That was 2010, January 2010.
So it's not, it's
wow.
Very recent, really.
Yeah.
In your life, yeah.
Yeah, it was, like I say, I'd sort of stopped coaching. I'd changed jobs, I had a promotion at work, and I just didn't have the time required to put into the coaching the football that I'd been doing previously, and photography just seemed to be something I could literally just go and do, not have to spend hours preparing coaching sessions and delivering coaching and sorting out teams and things like that. So it was almost a swap over within a few weeks, finishing one and starting the photography.
So you sort of hit 50 years old and thought, I need to do something new.
I hadn't hit 50 at the time, Kevin.
Oh, sorry, Richard.
In fact, I do remember having a conversation with Carl at some point a few years back and saying it was a midlife crisis. It was photography or helicopter lessons. There was a few other things after the helicopter lessons, but I think we'll save that for another podcast.
Wow, I can't believe it's so recent. Even I didn't realise that, and we get on quite well and quite close. But so, would you say that you must have a natural flair for photography, or have you had to actually work hard to get to where you are with it?
I think that's a good question, and actually, I was looking at some photos of my parents' house today, some old photos from when I was on a camp in the early '80s, and I was just looking at how I composed images then. And it's like, oh, okay, all right, perhaps there was a little bit there then, but my dad was into photography. My sister's a very accomplished photographer, so I guess there was just maybe something innate there. I don't know, but definitely lots of work as well, particularly learning the technical elements of camera operation.
Yeah. Well, you've seen my photography skills. No matter how good my camera is, they always come out looking like I might as well have given it to my 4-year-old son. So there must be something there to make you as good as you are, because you do, I think it's fair to say, you have probably got some of the best shots that are taken within OCR of people at different races and what have you. Even when it's as probably you'd describe it more as can shooting, so you're stuck on an obstacle, you still manage to get the angles to make them real standout photography rather than it just being copied over and over again, the same little piece. So yeah, it's there's definitely something that little bit extra about you compared to what the majority of people have got inside them for photography in terms of a flair.
So apologies if I'm going to jump ahead and ruin one of Carl's questions, but obviously football is a passion of yours, so you're taking photos of the football matches and things. How did it sort of go then from taking pictures at a football match to becoming a business and getting into OCR?
Well, the OCR story was actually all down to Subway. So myself and the family had gone to Cambridge for the day when we were living in Norfolk, and the family wanted to go to McDonald's for breakfast, or for lunch, sorry. Obviously, being a bit more health conscious, I thought Subway would be a far more appropriate choice. So I wandered off in the different direction across the streets of Cambridge to the Subway, and as I was going, I saw a poster on a wall, and this poster was advertising this event, and it showed some people jumping over some burning hay bales. I thought, oh, that looks interesting. So I made a little note, and the event was called Spartan Race, and it was being advertised for a few weeks later at Bassingbourne Barracks in Cambridgeshire, and that was our first involvement, right back in September 2010.
I sometimes think in life there's such little fluky little sort of incidents that happen. If you'd have thought, yeah, it's a bit healthier the Subway, but let's have the McDonald's.
Absolutely.
Would you ever got into OCR if you hadn't just made that single choice? That's the butterfly effect, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I often think about that, and I often think to myself, gosh, I probably could have been quite successful in my old career had I not seen that. But it was something that appealed to me. We spoke to the then owners of Spartan in the UK, and they hadn't thought about photography, so that was sort of something that was new to them. We offered to do it. We were, I think we were probably the first ones in there, and then.
So when you say we, who else was with you at that point?
Oh, at that point, it was basically the company was me. We weren't called Epic at the time. We rebranded to Epic in 2012, so we were called Espressivo at the time.
So when you say we, you mean Epic Action Imagery rather than you and other people that are involved in Epic?
After that, things sort of got a bit of a momentum of their own. We were invited to, I think the second OCR event we would have done would have been Dirty Dozen, I think, which would have been probably early 2013. I think. I mean, at that stage, we were probably doing about 15 events a year. I mean, this or last year.
So it's still a hobby side business to doing your full-time day job at the time, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was quite busy with my full-time day job. I was a head of school in a large college, so I was looking after several curriculum areas: sport, computing, construction and engineering, so I had quite a lot on with that, and actually it was quite handy sort of some weekends just to be able to go away and get away from the stress and pressure of that was associated with that job, and I remember how much I look forward to it. But it's actually there's a reason why at one point we had the photography company, the video company, and the MC were all employees at the same college, so we'd all sort of got each other involved. So I'd sort of got the first bit, then appointed the videographer appointed the person that is now Spartan Phil.
So, would it be fair to say that the model that most racers use now for their photography, basically the free photography model, giving everyone images, and I think it also that's what stands out about Epic Action Imagery is they do free photos. You've always pretty much with a lot of the OCR crowd been using that model of free photos, but the photos are just as good as the ones that some events are charging however much money for. So I think, would it be fair to say that you were the ones who introduced that model to the OCR scene then? If you jumped in with Spartan so early, they would have been one of the very few in the marketplace at that time anyway. So have you also been the ones who ran with that setup as well then, in terms of delivering free images to all the racers?
Where are these free photos? I'd like these free photos from Mud 7.
You have free photos from Mud 7. They're available on the Epic Action Imagery website.
and I'd raise a point there where Carl said that the images are just as good as the other ones. I think Epic's images are the best in the market. I've seen there's lots of other companies who charge for their photos and then that'll patch on what comes from the Epic ones. So
thank you. I mean,
was that how you started out with Spartan as well then, Richard? Was it free photos right from the very beginning as well?
No, 2010 season, which was only one event, it was sales.
Okay.
And 2011 it was sales. There was 4 events in the UK by then. I remember having a conversation actually after the Ripon race with then Spartan owners who were very keen to move on the free photos model. So I think we were obviously keen on it as well, because it took away any element of risk in terms of sales volumes. It changed that dynamic slightly, and I think at that point in time there was a realization of the marketing power through social media sharing that free photos would have over sales photos. I mean, obviously we still do some sales events, and I always cringe when I see on Instagram or Facebook one of the photos with a big copyright watermark on it. One of those things, you can't really necessarily get away from that, but thankfully it's quite rare. But we definitely prefer the free photo model. But it all comes down to what the race directors are after, what they want from their races, and what's affordable to them as well. Yeah.
I think in terms of when social media was just starting to become such a huge marketing tool to people, that would have been it was sort of a perfect storm then. They brought forward this free model for photography for all racers, and at the exact same moment was the perfect time for those things to be shared onto social media to be able to build up any brands. So it was sort of like a perfect storm really for Spartan and their marketing. It was just another case of perfect timing again. Do you think that's still the case with photography, that it is still the way to go? It is still the best way to go?
I think it really depends on each individual race. I mean, from a personal perspective, I do think it's the way to go, because I think it's, we're conscious that when we take photos, we don't want them just to end up on our website and never get seen, never see the light of day. We'd far rather they were downloaded and shared by people, even if they were just printed out and used as something in a pop-up frame on somebody's desk at work. We'd far rather have that photograph see the light of day than not be seen, and perhaps having a free photo that just encourages that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know with the charged photos, the sort of percentage of runners who actually buy them. Is it?
Well, statistically speaking, it's about 5 to 8%.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be under 10%, because there's some large events that do charging for photos. I never see any on social media at all that don't have a watermark on there. They're just sort of screen grabbing off the internet, but they've all got the copyright sort of images over there.
I mean, the standard, when we're talking to clients about potentially going over to the free photo model, the industry figures that I've gleaned from various reports and things that I've read is 5 to 8%, which is exceptionally low.
So the value is still enormous in getting those images out there as a marketing tool. It well and truly pays for itself.
Well, I'll give you a stat. Last year we were working with a particular brand on free photos, and the download rate from what was uploaded was 93%.
And that's compared to 10% if they were paid for. And that's the sort of marketing money can't buy, basically.
We nearly fell over when we saw those stats because I can't remember the total number of images, but it was into the multiple hundreds of thousands, and 93% of those have been downloaded.
That's incredible. So a little bit away from photography and being a sort of person who's been around OCR since pretty much its beginning, how do you feel that the OCR industry's changed from when you first started with Spartan and now with the multiple brands that you work with? How do you feel? What do you think's changed in the industry for you? What glares at you to sort of show that's changed?
I think the first obvious point is just the increased volume of events. That was the first thing that came along. I mean, obviously we'd had events like Tough Guide prior to any of the international brands starting, so there were sort of obstacle style events that were taking place, but it just seems since 2010 and particularly the 2011 season that almost acted as a catalyst for other event brands to start putting on their own events. And that seems to be the first thing I've noticed, is it's just been a more vibrancy to the competitive environment. There's been higher expectations. There's been a drive up in standards. Things have become more organised. And I think just generally it's become more of a commercially operating business in the same ilk as a sort of Ironman and some of the triathlons which were established in the 80s and 90s. OCR seems to be following a very similar route to that.
Yes, definitely. I say that to a lot of people, actually, and unfortunately some never really have seen or looked into the evolution of how the ups and downs that triathlon went through in terms of associations and federations and what have you, and how the industry changed. And it has followed similar curves to what we are about to follow or are following at present. So it is interesting to see, because I suppose triathlon is one of our closest genres of running, or however you want to describe it, in terms of being able to watch how they've evolved compared to how we could potentially evolve over the next 10 years or so.
The other thing that's changed, especially at Spartan races, the gladiators as well, Richard. Used to have the gladiators at the end of the race, and it was a huge topic when they got taken away for the first year, wasn't it? Now it's sort of a forgotten thing.
There was, but I mean, obviously that's part of their bid for taking out that human element of competition and making sure the time is person against obstacle and distance, which obviously is a big part of their long-term strategy for Olympic qualification and Olympic inclusion.
I think it also, at that time as well, probably put quite a lot of pressure on the medic teams as well, because some of the gladiators were a little bit over-enthusiastic. So they ended up with a fair few battle-scarred racers crossing the line with ankles and other bits and pieces hanging off. But yeah, I do miss them.
Back. Yeah, they should come back. Leave them for the elite racers, let them have their race, but if everybody else is having a bit of fun, let them sweep the legs.
we certainly have some interesting photos from gladiator moments. I can particularly remember the finish line it's actually at the Cliff Lakes event, which I think would have been, that would have been September 12, maybe September 13. You sort of come off the incline wall, drop down the sort of the rope as it was then before it became the metal steps that it is now, and then you'd be confronted by two fairly substantially robust characters with two very large pugil sticks, and they would take great pleasure in ensuring that your journey between the last obstacle and the finish line was as challenging as it had been for the previous few miles.
It's just the adrenaline you needed, the adrenaline kick towards the end to get you to the car, I think, without having to stop for a burger on the way. But yeah, that was I got probably one of my favourite OCR photos from that event, actually. Bit of barbed wire biting.
I remember taking that, actually, yeah. I do remember taking that.
That always gets rolled out, that does, on social media, that picture.
Well, it's either that one or the one in the zebra dress.
In the dress, yeah. That was the Beast, wasn't it?
That was the Beast, yes.
I think that was 2013. I think you shared the video from the start on YouTube yesterday, didn't you? Because that's when we first got together. So I actually met Carl 1st of September 2013 at the Spartan in Cambridge, which was actually in Saffron Walden, which is, I think really Essex, but it was classed as Cambridge. So that's when I did my first OCR, and I was just fretting so much about signing this death waiver and houses in the kill me because I'd never done anything like it before. But I was really looking forward to the gladiator bit at the end. That was like, I was most looking forward to that. And then that beast in 2013 where Carl wore the dress, that was like a proper beast, wasn't it? That was where people were getting pulled off the course. It was pouring down at Pippinford Park. That's when the van got ditched in the field.
Well, if you'd been there at 5 o'clock when James Simpson started, the sun was shining and it was a lovely day.
Yeah.
It was absolutely beautiful when James started, but it wasn't like that for much longer.
No, it got tough really quick. But Pippinford it's the ideal location for that sort of thing. You could just imagine you're running for that long. You feel like you're running in different places because the terrain is so varied, and you're in deep woodland, then you're in open woodland, and then you're out in the open in marshland, and then all of a sudden you're in a sandy area. You can see why they use it for military training and things, because it's perfect, because you've got a little bit of everything there.
And the lakes.
Yeah, exactly. It is amazing. So people are going to think we are being paid by Spartan with how much we're going down the route of Spartan, but
He does Mud 7 as well, Carl.
Yeah, no, yeah, it does, yeah. But what would you say has been your favourite race or event to shoot for you personally so far, or what you've got under your belt so far? What's been one of your favourites?
And this isn't just to try and appease Kev, but I really did enjoy the first Mud 7 in 2015.
Correct answer.
I was actually, I think because Kev was quite tight then, and it was a free photos model. We hardly had any photographers available on the team. He screwed us right down on budget, and I ended up actually.
I don't believe this.
I actually ended up sitting on the roots of a tree, shooting people coming across a rope obstacle. I can't remember which brand it was that would put that on at the time, but I actually got some of my favourite photos there. So it was, I know there's one of, I think Vince somewhere kissing somebody. I think that's in that lot. And there's a couple of other shots because it was just so dark. It was so dark and dim in there.
Different lighting in there, yeah.
Absolutely, and you really had to be thinking.
There was a rope across a cavern with a big sort of catch net underneath it.
That's right.
Well, there's two ropes going across.
And I really enjoyed shooting that, and it was kind of nice because at that stage I'd already spent the season shooting promo. And of course, promo is a slightly different pressure, and it was nice just to sort of sit there an obstacle and just try and create as best we could in what were difficult circumstances for photography, and it just really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed that one a lot, and it was my birthday, which also made it special.
Oh wow! So it kept you. So that one kept you on your toes for the day, basically, to keep you.
Yeah, absolutely,
absolutely,
I try and shoot course a little bit more often now because it's just handy to sort of have that stronger empathy with what the team are going through. When you're sort of shooting from kind of 8 in the morning right through till 8 at night, it's a long day. People will come. You can have like the beginning of it. You get your few elites through, and they come through at various intervals, and then you just get this mass of people coming through, and you can literally be like 45 minutes to an hour where you're just constantly shooting, and there's no time to stop or think. Yeah, and it does take a lot of concentration.
So it's very endurance based in terms of, for you. You'd never think it, but I'm guessing in terms of mentally, and because you're out there so long physically. Endurance-wise, that's a hell of a long time to be out in the elements for.
Yeah, and the weather can really change it. I mean, there's been a number of events that we tend not to remember the ordinary ones where it was just a nice day and that was it. We tend to remember the ones where there was a deluge of rain. The Windsor Beast Weekend 2018. The Saturday was particularly savage. The team were out there. I remember the Jerome, who was at the tyre carry. He was very cold. He was very wet. And you're right. We've got to be able to concentrate. We've got to carry on shooting. We've got to make sure the camera equipment and the photographers are able to stay as dry as possible. We can't sit there in a little cabin, or we can't just go off and sit in the car until the rain stops. We've got to be there, and we've got to be ready to shoot in all kinds of weather. And we do consider that where we put photographers, where we locate them based on those types of challenges.
I remember you did
So
a bit of work for us one year at Tough Guy when you came along and took some promo shots for us. And again, it was absolutely hammering it down. But some of the tricks of the trade of sort of sellotaping carrier bags around the lens to try and keep it as dry as possible. And there must be other little things that you know now after 10 years of doing camera work to keep
yeah, I
your
mean the cameras
kit
will
in
take
the best
the cameras
condition.
will take a little bit. They will take a little bit, but it's always worth investing in sort of a cover just to protect it a little bit further. But yeah, gaffer tape and plastic bags are very handy additions. Canon or Nikon don't manufacture them, but perhaps they should.
Do you have so in terms of, you need to have an A team at events of photographers that you know you can trust, that you know that are going to get the shots and what have you? Because obviously, with photography, there are no second chances. There are no opportunities to go. Exactly, there are no opportunities to go back again. So do you have? Is there a method that you have now got after all these years of finding photographers to actually cherry pick the photographers that work best for you? Is this something that stands out about a photographer, or is it a case of just going out and hunting for these togs?
I think obviously the photography skill is the obvious one. First and foremost, they've got to be able to produce images and demonstrate high quality images in a range of conditions. They've got to have the types of equipment that is designed to cope with varying light conditions when it gets dark. You need a wider aperture in order to be able to make sure you can still get the camera to perform at the speeds that you want it to without the images starting to deteriorate. So there's some technology element to it, but a lot of it just comes down to the sort of the motivation of the photographer, and the key thing is remembering that we're there as a service provider to the participants. So it's our moral obligation to work hard for the people that have worked hard to be able to be fit enough and strong enough and confident enough to run 10 miles and jump over fire.
Yeah.
I was remembering from the first Mud 7, I had some signs done which were sort of like photographer ahead, get ready to smile, and you were like, no, we don't want those up because we want to catch the natural reactions. We don't want the sort of fake smiles coming up to obstacles, and they definitely work a lot better. I'm still baffled that it's only 10 years since you've been doing the photography. It's really thrown me. But not just, people might not know, this has enabled you to sort of travel the world, picturing other events throughout. You've been over to sort of Canada, you've been the other way, Dubai, and all around Europe. So it's been a whirlwind 10 years for you, really.
Yeah, we've done 18 countries now. I was trying to
Can you
remember
name them all?
we've been.
Have we got long enough, Carl?
So Spartan, we've done the UK, we've done Ireland, we've done Canada, we've done events in Iceland and Sweden on behalf of the international Spartan setup. We've done South Korea, Oman, Dubai, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and
17.
And other events.
I don't know what it was.
That's
pretty impressive.
That's just Spartan. I mean, in Tough Mudder, we've done Ireland, UK, Germany. I've covered a Tough Mudder event in the US as well on behalf of another company. In the very early days, we worked with Andreas and his team on Viking Race, which was just phenomenal. They were great fun events. We really enjoyed doing those. We worked on the early days with Dorian's Challenge in Cyprus. And we also had the pleasure of working in Denmark with Reborn Raw when they first started back in 2014.
So it's gone from a hobby. Are you still doing your full-time job as well, or has this become the full-time over the last 10 years?
No, in fact, it really came at quite an interesting time. I got a work promotion in 2012 and moved from one college in East Anglia to a college in the Midlands where I live now. And I sort of knew quite early on after that move that it probably wasn't a very good move, and I might have made a bit of a mistake. And I remember being sat in a meeting, and they were talking about the state of finances in college education, which is the same as in most education. It's sort of cutbacks. And they said, we're going to be looking for volunteers for redundancy. And I remember thinking to myself, damn, my hand's in the air.
Free money.
And well, that was it. I thought, you're actually going to pay me to leave. This is great. I've been in education for 20 years. This is a wonderful opportunity to get out of it and just see if we can make a go of this photography lark. And that's what, now 6 years ago, and I haven't really looked back. In fact, I'm going back into that college at the moment because we have an intern from the college, sort of learning his trade with me at the football at Burton Albion each week.
Wow. So it's been, from jumping ship to going into photography, it was headlong into it. There wasn't really a huge transition at going from all to nothing. From nothing to all sort of situation. So you spoke about shooting all over the world and different races or all over the globe. Which would you say has probably been your favourite place to shoot?
Ooh. I mean, it's almost impossible to find a single favourite location. It really depends on a whole rash of circumstances, the weather, the race.
Don't choose Mud 7 again, because it just get a bit embarrassing. choose something else.
I think I had 3 seasons out in Canada, 3 relatively long seasons, summer seasons, and great fondness remembering those times, because it was a great opportunity to sort of learn a little bit about the sporting culture out there, to sort of get to know the country a little bit. There's something great about driving from Montreal to Nova Scotia, which is just an unfeasible distance to drive. So I think that's probably the same as driving from Calais to Berlin or Warsaw. Really long, real long way. And in fact, the directions we got off our host was just drive north for 3 hours and turn right. And that was pretty accurate, to be fair. So very grateful to Phil for that.
No sat-nav required.
Sorry?
No sat-nav required.
No, not really. Not until we actually started to get close to the venues. I guess the time in the Middle East was quite fantastic as well. I mean, that was a really cosmopolitan adventure. Massive cultural differences, some real things to take into account about how the promotional imagery was appropriate for the marketplace that they were advertising in, because that was so significantly different to perhaps what we'd have in the UK, and that was quite educational for me to sort of learn about that element to it as well. It wasn't just about me trying to take photos as good as I could make them. It was actually then having to really understand the brief from the marketing team in terms of what they required in order to be able to promote their events in the context they were in. I think probably covering the first Tough Mudder in the US was probably the biggest adventure. It was end of May 2014, and actually had to get a rental car and drive from Montreal all the way into Vermont and the White Mountain Resort, and then on to Boston for a couple of meetings before heading back to Montreal over about a 4 or 5 day period. So from an adventure perspective, I would definitely say that one was right up there. I really liked the old Spartan Yorkshire venue in Ripon. That was just absolutely fantastic. There was just so much mud in elements of that course. That was wonderful. I mean, I think they had 4 events there in 2011, 12, 13 and 14. So I think from a muddy perspective, it was probably that one. And I also remember actually having a pretty amazing road trip back from that event in 2012 with Aaron and one of the guys who was shooting this for us at the time, a guy called Mark Kemp, who's subsequently gone on to form his own building and construction firm called Rigger Surveying. So he doesn't do photography anymore, but obviously Aaron's a big part of Epic with me, and I'd come back from France the day before, so I was in no way I didn't want to do any more driving, and Aaron drove. It was just one of those trips where you're just laughing all the way there and all the way back, so I've got to remember that one very fondly too. I guess the beach for Dorian's Challenge, the beach location in Larnaca was quite something, even though it was absolutely freezing. It was actually quite a spectacular location.
What time of the year was that then for it to be freezing in Cyprus?
April, and it was cold. It was really cold. And they said, "Can you just go in the sea and get these photos?" Oh, okay. I wasn't bothered about being cold, just making sure I keep my camera out of the water. But yeah, I mean, obviously the Canadian events from a sort of location perspective, ski resorts in the summer can look absolutely stunning. But also, particularly Malaya, the venue for some of the events in Dubai. Malaya is absolutely stunning. I mean, just beautiful place. And I shan't mention some of the senior international Spartan staff getting their buggies stuck in the sand and needed to be rescued by me and Ryan, the videographer. I won't mention that now, but should they wish to hear this and fess up, I'll let them put that in comments wherever it gets posted.
I'm sure there are plenty of things that go on behind the scenes that people would love to hear about. But it sounds more like you actually enjoyed the ones where you got to drive big, massive American cars a little bit too much. Are you sure it's not that was prompted you to like all those races that that little bit more?
It's part of the adventure. You know, it's part of the whole experience. It's like it's impossible to detach those two things. Our first season in Canada in 2013, we did the event in, I think it was Morin Heights, which is just outside Montreal. And the following week there was an event at a place called Le Massif de Charleroi, which is just north of Quebec City. And I was told on the day before we were travelling that I had to drive there. And I said, right, okay, I don't know where it is, but, you know, we'll figure it out. And we sort of went over to Avis to pick up a hire car, and we thought we were going to have like a Nissan Micra or something like that. And we ended up getting a brand spanking new Ford F-150 truck. And it was just like, this is really good fun. This is great fun. Which is sort of homage. I've bought a slightly smaller truck for the UK, but it was sort of a brief reminder of what those trips were like. Because yes, I mean that's you know, you can't escape that element of the adventure because it's part of it.
And talking of adventure, we got to meet Bear Grylls together, didn't we, as well, when I went down to interview him for Obstacle Race magazine.
We did. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, that was really good. That's when they were launching a gym brand, which I think was called Epic, I believe, at the time.
Yeah, they were launching the Bear Grylls Survival Race at the time as well, and while I wouldn't call Bear sort of a best friend of mine, I'd still consider him a friend.
Oh, he's a jolly nice chap.
From that one meeting.
Absolutely, very, very nice chap. Very pleasant to work with. Extremely well managed by his PA Lizzie as well. I always remember just how phenomenally efficient she was.
He's very driven. It's a shame that the race didn't really work out. I think they had a couple of years going for it, didn't they? But things didn't work out in that venture in the end.
No, well, they went over to the States, so IMG bought it. So IMG bought the rights to it in, must have been 2017. And then IMG, I think they ran one. It was on a film set somewhere in California or Nevada. I'm not aware of them ever doing a second race. And then IMG sort of offloaded some of their events. I don't think they do any events at the moment. Limelight bought some, like the London Triathlon, or took over. And obviously, perhaps Bear Grylls Survival Challenge, which I think it was called by then, just fell by the wayside.
So a bit like us, we've sort of been around from the early part of the OCR scene. Carl further back than me. Again, you've seen that tidal wave of events that have come in between and now disappeared, and it seems to be sort of levelling out again with the amount of different events that are out there. So that obviously, if there's fewer events, it makes life a little bit more difficult for you because there's less business to go for.
Yeah. I mean, we've evolved quite significantly since our very early days. I mean, if I look at our 2014 season, I think we had something like 60. No, it's far less than that. I think we had maybe 20 something events, and then last year we had 290. So you know, we've started shooting football, not just piecemeal for odd games, but actually having covering Burton Albion home and away for the local papers, Derby Telegraph and the Burton Mail.
Are they non-league side, are they?
They're not a non-league side, and I think you'll find in a few weeks' time at a ground that you don't even own, they'll take you to the cleaners, as they have done on many previous occasions. Of course, we haven't played you.
Oh, touched a nerve there, Carl.
You lined yourself up for that one, though.
You've been in the division below, so...
So they're the places... Sorry, go on, Richard.
We're talking football here, Carl. Stop interrupting.
No, I don't want to talk football, boys.
You haven't got time. You're going to get me on football.
You two get too excited when you start talking football, and then that's it. And then I just switch off, and it's game over. So
final whistle, it's called.
Not game
over. Yeah.
That's okay. Final whistle. Anyway, so full time for football talk. Stop being geeky, you two. So in terms of, those are the places that you've just sort of let us know about that you've really enjoyed shooting. Is there anywhere that not that you've not enjoyed shooting, but anywhere that's been really challenging in terms of conditions or into anything like that that's made it so it's been
you can't wait for the end of the day.
Real tough. Yeah, exactly.
At an event, no. My first trip to Saudi Arabia had some interesting elements to it. The first part was that I didn't actually get my visa until the morning before I was due to fly. So it was literally down to London, pick up my passport from the embassy, get to Heathrow, get on the plane and go. Everything was done late, booked my hire car, didn't even read any of the T's and C's about the hire car. Get to Riyadh, have to wait hours for the luggage to come off the plane. Go out to the car hire desks and realise that the Avis car hire desk is actually in a different terminal, so then have to go and find the bus for that. Everything's in Arabic. It's quite late in the evening by this stage. I get the bus to the other terminal. I find the Avis desk, and I almost want to hug the guy when I get there, and he says hello to me, and I said, I'm here to pick up my hire car, gave him my reservation number, gave him my licence, and he just went, no. And I was like, hang on a minute, it's like 11:15 at night, what do you mean no? He said, your licence, it's not right for the kingdom. And I thought, right, okay, I've used this, it's a British licence, a UK licence, European licence, whatever. Why? And he says, no, you need an international driving permit. And I thought, there's lots of times where you should never get stroppy, but in a country like Saudi Arabia, it's definitely not the time to start throwing your toys out of the pram. So I thought, right, okay, I've just got to figure this out. I'm in the airport, it's getting later in the day. I'm in the domestic terminal, so I'm not going to get any international sort of assistance here. This is kind of domestic flights within the country. So I then have to get the bus back to the international terminal. By which point it's about 11:30, everything's closing, and I finally work out how I can get some cash out of one of the cash points. Get a bit of cash out, and I make a phone call. I ring the hosts that we're working with. And he just said, I'm glad I've called you. I'm glad you've called. There's no space in the accommodation. You need to go to this hotel. Oh, wow. So it actually ended up being a bit of a blessing. And he texted me the address of the hotel, and I just got a taxi ride into the hotel. And I have to say the hotel was absolutely fantastic. So I was quite glad when I got there. But it was just this very fraught couple of hours. I'm trying to think, right, okay, I don't really want to be stuck in the airport in Riyadh. Very pleasant airport, but didn't want to be stuck there. But the event itself was absolutely fantastic. I don't think there's really... I guess there's been events where the weather's just pushed your character a little bit too hard. But that can be for sort of either point. That can be both the extreme heat that we certainly had at some of the UK events in 2018, but also the extreme wet. And in fact, 2018 was quite an interesting year. The two Tough Mudder events we did in the July that year, we were roasted alive in the London North event. That was insanely hot, and I'm very grateful to some of the people that kept my drinks in the ice truck, Arctic Enema. It's quite handy nipping back there every now and then to go and grab another bottle of Lucozade or water. And then a few weeks later we were at Yorkshire, where it was like somebody was following you around with a fire hose.
That's Yorkshire for you.
Yeah, maybe. I think they got a soaking this past year as well. I wasn't at that one, unfortunately, but it's very rare that you don't enjoy it. I mean, like I say, the main driver for me personally, and I guess the one of the core values for Epic is that we're there for the participants. We want to make sure that every participant has something to take from that event that reflects the hard work they've put in to be there. Certainly I like it when lots of the team have actually taken part in events, so they have that greater empathy, that greater understanding of what it's like. But I've never been bored at an event. I've never felt, God, I wish this was over, because I enjoy it too much, because I could be sat in an office.
Yeah, true. And it's not like you're going to rock up to an event and it's ever going to be the same. You're going to have, like you say, different conditions to shoot in, different areas to shoot in, a different setup of an obstacle, because an obstacle's very rarely set up the same, whether it's the terrain that it's set over in the first place and things like that. So in terms of obstacles, do you have a favourite obstacle that you like to shoot?
Fire jump at night.
Fire jump at night time?
Fire jump at night.
Trouble is, that's not going to come around very often.
It doesn't happen very often, which is probably why I like it so much, because I've only had about 3 opportunities in those 10 years. I do like fire jump at night, just simply because it just makes for a more spectacular image. Technically, It's not the biggest challenge in the world. It's quite straightforward to shoot in the dark. You just need a little bit of light, a few flashes, and I think the images just can look absolutely stunning. So fire jump is probably one of my favourite to shoot. Anything else after that? There's not many that I would find tedious.
It's something unique, isn't it? The fire jump. Nobody else has got it, and I think just those flames licking around the ankles. I think it just.
Yeah,
some of them. Yeah. I mean, have you got like a favourite image? Like, you think that's the money shot? That is like my favourite OCR
from the fire jump.
Well, from just overall, because we've seen some fantastic fire jump pictures in the past. I think when we started doing the magazine, there's a guy who used to do all the Spartan races, Michael Robinson. turned up
That's
to
Superman
one
on
in
the front
Super,
cover.
Superman,
one of Aaron's
and he was sort of
shots,
flying, looked like he was flying across the fire jump, just caught at that perfect time as he was doing a sort of forward jump and roll into it. I think the first cover from Obstacle Race magazine was another guy sort of jumping over the fire jump with a sort of pointing fingers, like, yes, I've nailed this.
Yeah, same event. That was Pippingford, wasn't it? That was Pippingford in whatever year, 2013. Yeah, another one of Aaron's photos. He reminds me regularly that he's on different covers.
Bless him.
I think my favourite shot is probably that one of Faye, where she's coming out of the water and she's just got, you can't see her at all. She's
Swamp
just
Thing.
Complete Swamp Thing. I mean that's got to be right up there. Just simply because it's so unusual. I did notice, in fact, I'm not sure which blog. One of the blogs shared one of the photos from Scotland 2015 today. I shared it on my Facebook profile. I'm not 100% sure where I saw it, but in 2015, Carl and the team built a fairly awesome set of muddy trenches, and that was quite a spectacular obstacle to shoot, because it was just so darn muddy, and each one was deeper and more muddy than the previous sort of trench. And by the time I was photographing it at the end, they were in quite a state. So I quite enjoyed that as well.
Yeah,
so there's a few photos that come from there.
Yeah, although obstacles like that are time consuming for the build crew, they are super simple, but can give the racers and, like you say, the photography teams some of the best shots and some of the best experiences, just purely because of the natural elements that are involved and what have you. It really does make a big difference to I don't know, I suppose the images you can get in the first place, because every single image is like you say, that you're putting together the images for the competitors, and it's theirs because it is a memento. Most people, probably 90% of people who take part in obstacle races, are still charity runners, and it's easy to forget that, especially for people like myself who are so ingrained into the community that we forget that the industry is actually run on majority of fun runners and what have you. So you are putting an image together for them, or capturing an image, shall I say, that will probably be an experience that they'll keep with them for the rest of their life. It's a real standout experience. It may be the only time that they ever do this sort of thing. It's a once in a lifetime thing. So not to put any more pressure on next time you're thinking about it, but it is sort of a one. I think for me that'd make me really nervous.
Well, the images are treasured probably more than the medals and finishers t-shirts, aren't they? Those images. I look back at some of the pictures. It's not often I go and get the medals out of the cupboard, but I often look back at the images and the video of me leading the Spartan Beast in Pippingford in 2014.
The first 40 metres.
You led the Beast, Kevin.
Yeah, and there's some big names in there as well.
You've never mentioned that before. You should have said some. About. That's pretty spectacular. That is, Kevin, isn't it?
Not many people could say that.
No, because
the
not
elite.
many
I mean,
people.
Conor Hancock was there. James Appleton.
Yeah. But how many meters down the track was it that you stopped to
40.
get a breather though before they caught you?
To wait for you, it's definitely more than 40.
I don't know. I was stood around about 30. You didn't go far past me.
Oh, Kevin.
I just turned around and see the medics treating you.
For those 30 metres...
Sounds like jealousy, this does.
You look like an absolute elite for those 30 metres, Kevin. I've got
the money shot. I think it was Richard that actually took the shot of me leading. And they're quite a distance behind me, and you can see a big grin on my face. So that's what it's all about. It's about the fun.
That's actually one thing that's really changed, especially Spartan races. For some of the events, it would have been a mass start. The waves would have been nowhere near as small as what they are now, and sort of as organised. I shared a YouTube video the other day that I think Kev mentioned earlier on, but it was literally 5 minutes of people running past the video camera at the start line, just constantly going past. And you just don't get that anymore. Has that changed things for you in terms of, because the waves were so big back then? Did it make it more difficult for you, Richard, or did you not really see that out on the course? Were they already spread by then?
No, I mean we'd already covered several sort of marathons and half marathons by the time we did our first Spartan. So we knew that the early placement of photographers would be counterproductive to actual quality. So we knew if you put somebody in sort of the first kilometre or the first kilometre and a half, they're going to be bunched. And it takes a while for people to start to spread out across a course. So we'd always have planned, if we knew there was going to be large runner numbers, we'd always planned to make sure that the first photography point was far enough into the course that it wasn't going to be an issue. I mean, we always go to course the day before. We always visit the course, talk to, I mean, particularly now, sort of the timing teams, find out wave times, find out how many people are going to be in each wave, and get a real sense of what obstacles are going to present for the best locations.
Yeah. So do you take the time to advise them, or who ultimately gets the final say in terms of obstacles that will be shot? Is it the race director themselves, or will they usually listen to your direction in terms of which ones to shoot?
I think it's a very good level of collaboration. Certainly with Spartan, we'll get the runners show a week to 10 days, probably more than a week to 10 days before the event, to be fair, probably nearer 2 to 3 weeks. I'll go through the course map. I'll sort of, if it's a venue we've used before and sort of know the lay of the land, I can get a sense of it. I'll then talk to the timing team, sort of let them know, let Carl know my initial thoughts, where I think we could be going. And then it might be that by the time we actually get there on the Friday, the timing team have maybe seen a location, and they say, "Why don't you check this out? Could we do this instead?" And we're always open to that type of conversation. We're not saying it's got to be there, and we're not going to be flexible. At certain events, you get a background that perhaps you didn't know about from the map, and then you can decide to make that change there and then.
Yeah. So you literally pretty much walk the whole course and the obstacles, do you?
Not a lot of walking going on.
No?
A lot of driving going on.
Is that what the 4x4's for?
Yes, that's right. Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's the justification. Yeah.
So in terms of Spartan, how many photographers do you usually have at, say, a Spartan event?
5.
5?
4 or 5, yeah, 5.
So
yeah.
out of the 25 plus obstacles that they usually have on the course, you need to choose just 5 obstacles that you know are going to produce the best.
Yeah, probably
Yeah,
4,
we
wouldn't it? With Richard walking around doing the promo shots.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Promo photography.
It's like with Mud 7, we have 7 zones, but we have 8 photographers usually, so 1 in each zone, and Mr. Burley go around taking all the mini shots.
That's it, the ones that others can't get. So when it comes to the day of the event, as long as you are able to and you're there to do the promo shots, as we call them, and what would you call them professionally? Sorry, those shots, are they promo shots? Or?
Yeah, promo shots.
Promo shots.
Yeah.
If you have a choice that morning and you knew you had someone there who you could rely on to get those shots, if you had the choice of the two, either being put on an obstacle and doing static photography for the day on that obstacle, or doing the promo shots, which would you usually choose?
If you'd asked me this question a year ago, I'd have said promo. But I've really enjoyed having some different leads this year, or in 2019 we gave some other leads the go, and it was really refreshing to see sort of their take on the brief that we have to work with. So I think from a variety perspective, we'll probably see more variety in the people walking around doing the promo shots than just myself. I think I've got some very talented photographers in the team, and really should give them the opportunity to shine and show what they can do as well.
Yeah, which must be quite difficult for you, because you are it's your company, so it's your baby. So it must be quite difficult to relinquish the control and allow someone else to be the lead. That must have been quite a I don't know, like a growth for yourself to be able to do that.
Probably sobbed myself to sleep several times thinking about it. But no, it sort of presented itself. And the other side of that is, as we grow the number of events we do, I want to make sure I've got that capacity within the team as well, that it's not just reliant on me doing that I've got other people who can step into that role and do a great job. And we had that situation with the Spartan race in Twickenham in November. I sort of got the date and I thought, oh damn, I had to be working at an event in Los Angeles that particular weekend, and I was already booked, and flights were booked and everything else. So it was
Sounds
like,
terrible.
it's going to have to be somebody else to do the lead. And I actually asked one of the young lady who had led the Tough Mudder photography team for me at Southwest in 2018 because I was at Mud 7. So I sent Rosie over to do the lead there, and she did an absolutely fantastic job. And I think, to be fair, in some circumstances, you have to have the recognition of what your style is and what your limits are, and actually try and extend the type of images you're giving to the client by letting somebody else have a go.
Yeah, definitely.
I've got my fingers crossed under the desk here, by the way, in case any of the team are listening.
No, but I think
I'll deny I said any of these things.
they must know, though. At the end of the day, it's your baby. It's something that you've sort of.
It is, but if somebody's going to do a better job than me in that circumstance, I'm not going to just say that's mine. I'm doing it. I'm the boss. That's it. And I like to be pushed. I want the team that are working on my behalf at events. I want them to push me, and to for me not to be complacent. Because the worst thing I can do, and the worst thing I can do for a client is just start to produce mediocrity or things without any variety, and it just looks like whether you did an event in 2014 or you did the event in 2019, it's going to look the same, because obviously the brand values and the brand's needs will be evolving.
Yeah, that must actually be quite difficult, because obviously, like you mentioned earlier on, different countries, different events and what have you have a different, how would you describe it, sort of wants and needs from their photography, especially if it's going to be used as promotional material and what have you. Different countries need different things. So yeah, it must be quite tough.
So what events are we going to see you at in 2020?
Oh gosh, what have we got? First OCR I think will be Spartan in April, so I'll be at Pippingford Park for that one. I think after that, I can't open my calendar at the moment, but after that I think we'll be looking at Tough Mudder London West. I'll be at that one, and then I actually don't know what my calendar's like after sort of mid-April, because it sort of we're relatively quiet at the moment. I think we've got about 15 events in February. As of this Monday coming, things start to take off a little bit. We've got a big sweep of theatre shows, the work we do with a company called SSPA Events in Stafford, and then after that, I actually haven't got a clue. It comes thick and fast. We'll have the Swimathon events. We'll have the ETAP Caledonian up in Scotland, which is our work we do, promo work we do on behalf of Limelight Sports. And then I just lose track.
The majority of the events that you shoot outside of OCR then, especially sort of like the Swimathon events and what have you, are those ones that you will more often than not attend yourself?
It depends. Again, depends. If what's required, I think somebody else in the team has got the better match of skills, then I'll send somebody else.
Right. So Richard, you've told us about where you are now, where Epic has been, but where do you see photography and Epic Action Imagery going in the future?
I think the photography will be dependent upon the technologies that come out. I know Sasha was talking to me about something that his team were working on with trackable cameras and cameras that can track movement, and I think that's obviously going to be a technology that will change things. I've always gone with the mindset that technology is an enhancement to the art element of photography rather than a replacement for. But obviously, if technology starts to take over, remote cameras and things like that, then that could start to see things change. That obviously would carry a level of investment, but longer term could end up being a saving, obviously on human resource. But actually, my thinking is that the technology will drive the change. We're seeing new cameras coming out with new capabilities. And how those are applied into the event market, well, we'll wait and see. But I think one of the most significant changes will always be how images are delivered to participants. We've seen the advent of facial recognition come on board. We've used various facial recognition sites through GeoSnapshot and through Sweatworks. And I've always been amazed with how those have gone. I mean, I think you remember we did some tests with the 2018 Mud 7 shots. We did some facial recognition tests with those, and I think one of the first feedback that you sent to me was, this is real Skynet stuff. I couldn't see myself in the photo, then realised I was in the background, and I think that's quite powerful. And I think that again, that image delivery will start to change. How far are we off from immediate delivery on site? Where a photographer is shooting photos and it's basically streaming live onto a hosting site with watermarking and quality control done through some in-server process. That may well be the future. I think the important thing is, particularly from Epic's perspective, we are a photography company first, and we'll always form partnerships with technology companies to enhance our offer. But we are, photo first. That will always be our number one priority. Which makes it interesting, but we learn a lot. We've got some fantastic partners. As I mentioned, GeoSnapshot and Mohammed at Sweatworks. They've been great to work with over the years, and they've got that technological knowledge. They've got those skills, and it's great that we're just able to outsource that element. So personally, I could just concentrate on making sure that I've got the right photographers taking high quality images on course.
Yeah. Plus, with the era that we're in at the moment, with smartphones, everybody thinks they're a photographer and they can take superb shots. Have we seen that sort of technology?
Technically, they are. I mean, the iPhone cameras, and I'm sure the Huawei camera lenses, and they're phenomenal. The quality there is amazing. I was overseas recently, and I used my iPhone as much as I did my camera, just simply because the quality is there. It's easier for sharing online. It's the only challenge is I may not be able to edit it quite as much, but actually from an image quality perspective, I was really happy with what was coming out of that.
Yeah, the AI that's sort of included in an iPhone now is sort of out of this world. The
the technology is going to keep moving. And how that will look in 12 months' time, 18 months' time, 2 years' time, we're bound to be in a different place. But if people still want amazing photos, particularly sports photos where there's movement, then I'm not 100% sure those cameras are quite ready for that as of today. That doesn't mean they won't be in 6 months' time.
Yeah, so there's still going to be that human element needed to be able to adapt to the different conditions.
I hope so. I'm not a big fan of remote cameras. Several reasons for that. One is that things change, light conditions change, circumstances change. The flow of runners through an obstacle or through a particular element of the course will change. And if we want to put people in sort of the sweet spot within the composition of the image, then that may be harder for technology to do that as of now. But how that would be in 12 or 24 months' time, that could have moved on to the point where we don't need photographers on course.
Yeah, so it's really everything's going to change basically with photography over the next few years is what you're getting at, really, which is quite exciting, but also it must be quite I don't know, put you on edge maybe in terms of wow, you've got all these things that you're going to have to keep up with over the next few years. So I can't worry about what Google or Amazon are doing. I mean, they're not worried about what I'm doing. If they're doing great things and it makes things better, then great. But everything has a life cycle. Yeah, true. So that's where you feel that photography is going. But what about you, as in Epic Action Imagery? Where are you going from now into the future?
That's a good question. Again, you've asked lots of good questions tonight. I'm very impressed by this, and everything I've written down is completely superfluous now. I've not used any of my notes that I made throughout the day whatsoever. 2019, 2019, we started Epic Canada. So Alex Barrell in Montreal is running Epic Canada. That was really to do particularly with the growth of the Mudgirl Run brand that we work with over there. They launched their events in 2017. I knew they were going to be quite big, because their first weekend event in Montreal, they had 14,000 people over 2 days. Wow. When you're only dealing with 50% of the population, to hit 14,000 people was quite phenomenal. I've been over to sort of support a couple of those events in the last 2 years, and those numbers are still growing. That's the brand I was sort of helping out with in Los Angeles in November, because there's 20 dates in the US this year. Apologies, the dogs are barking in the background. Our post comes very late here, I think generally, I'd like to extend the international dimension to some extent. Obviously, the growth out of Canada into America was an organic growth along with the race brand, so that was sort of a natural selection. But we'd certainly like to grow more over there. I mean, Alex has an agreement in place with me that is quite a slow organic model. We're not going to try and jump or grow. We've got one hand and 3.5 fingers on another big brand in Canada, which will hopefully be sorted in the next couple of days. We're literally just waiting for the contract terms to drop in, but everything's agreed in terms of budget, and I'm really excited about that one, which I think takes us to about 40 events in North America next year, which is. Wow. When I think back to what I wanted to do with Epic, and I didn't necessarily have any written goals or missions or visions. I just wanted to have some fun, take some photos, and travel the world a little bit. It's completely got out of hand. There's no doubt about that. But it has been very exciting, and I'm really delighted to see talented photographers like Alex taking the brand forward as well.
Yeah, and it's good that it's again you relinquishing control of what is your baby as well, which is a tough step to take, but it's good that you've been able to do that with people that you can trust, so that you can grow outside, because there's only ever so far you're going to be able to grow it basically alone whenever you're having to take care of it by yourself. So you've sort of got to do that to allow it to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the challenges I found working in the years that I did with the Canadian events was that the 5 hour time difference that adds a massive amount to your day. If somebody wants to have a call at 4:30 their time, that's sort of 9:30 UK time, and to be on your best and remember everything and make a note of the actions and get those done timely, it was becoming a bit of a challenge, and throw in the fact that actually the Mud Girl team are based in Quebec, and as a consequence are French first. Whereas Alex was probably better placed for that. And you're right. He's a phenomenally talented photographer. He's got a great attitude. He works hard, and just because of that, he was a really good fit for Epic and to take Epic forward in Canada.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. So for anyone who would like to keep up with all things Epic Action Imagery, where would be the best place for them to go to be able to follow your adventures?
I guess probably we try and post as much as we can to Facebook. We post as much as we can to Instagram. So we're usually putting posts there somewhere. We've sort of not necessarily got a bit of a joined up plan in comparison to some other work we're doing at the moment, but we probably do need to get round that. In my head, actually, I've been thinking about a few loved and lost posts, sort of putting up some images, some favourite images from some of the brands which have no longer part of the OCR calendar. Some of the awesome events like Mucky Races, Monster Race, Rock Solid Race, and Dirty Dozen Races. Events that we really like some of the images that come out of that, but obviously those brands are no longer operating. So that's probably next. Obviously, they want to keep up with us through Facebook. That's absolutely fine. Our website is literally just a place for storing photos. It's nothing else. There's no sort of latest information or news bulletins. So the best way to keep up with us is probably through Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. So I've obviously followed your Instagram and Facebook and what have you recently, and for you personally, I've noticed that there's a new challenge that's come onto the horizon for you.
Adventure 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Adventure 2.
What's that all about?
It's Venture 2 of 3, so there is a third in the offing as well. But Venture 3 is a long way in the future. But there are some very early sort of seeds being sown for that particular venture. But Venture 2 is a thing called Epic Gear. So Epic Gear is actually born of a little bit of frustration in the quality of outdoor clothing, and no particular brand. But what I was finding is that you'd go along, you'd buy some outdoor clothing, which is what we need for being in the outdoors in any kind of conditions, and it might last a year. A zip might go, or a thread will go, or a seam will go, or it just wasn't what I wanted. And most importantly, I really despise losing things, which obviously as I start to look
Like your
back
hair.
towards. Yeah, thanks for that, Kevin. And I really don't think you've got the strongest moral ground for making a comment like that, bearing in mind there's 15 years between us.
And the rest.
But a few years ago, I was a pair of shorts on course, climbing off the pyramid scheme obstacle. I didn't realise that at the time. Drove off to the next part of the course and realised I'd lost my phone. My phone had dropped out of my pocket. And it was like, oh, damn it. And I then lost an hour trying to find my phone, which was far from ideal. And I'm very grateful for Matt Richards, who was one of the partnership guys at Tough Mudder at the time, who let me log onto his iPhone so we could find it out on course, and very grateful to the volunteer that handed it in to the staff member where I retrieved it from. But it got me thinking about the fact that, whilst an iPhone would have been a frustrating thing to lose, that could have been a memory card full of images, and that would have been a very problematic circumstance. So I'd always been conscious that I wanted to try and find some stuff which was a little bit more appropriate for what I needed from the photography perspective, large zip pockets and stuff like that. Because one of the things with photography is there's lots of small accessories that aren't cheap, so you don't really want to lose them. And last year I was working with on a shoot for, well, it wasn't really a shoot for, we were just shooting some garments and doing some stage shots, and Virtus outdoor gear I was introduced to David Wood, and we had a conversation early part of this year, and what was a sort of the Epic gear idea suddenly catapulted forward a little bit. And we became the distributor for Virtus Outdoor Group for the UK. So we're just in the process of learning about how to import things from Hong Kong, learning about stock control, learning about website sales, learning about how to be an Amazon seller. And there's lots of lessons that we're learning a little bit on the fly, but we're almost there now. The website is done. That will take about 72 hours from today to just launch that. We're just pointing it at the URL at the moment, which apparently takes a bit of time. The Amazon shop should be set up roughly the same time scale. But yeah, our first venture with Epic Gear is the relationship with Virtus Outdoor Group, and that's based on some very shared values around quality, around durability, around robustness, around applicability to being outdoors.
Yeah, so perfect into sort of within the conditions that you have to work in for photography, but also the conditions that OCR, especially, I suppose it really the sort of OCR area it would work best in is sort of the Spartan endurance events and things like that.
From a participant's perspective, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And certainly David's one of sort of the extreme event leads. So that obviously works both for him from his time in the military, his experience, and obviously his knowledge of the garments as well. I mean, it is good stuff. I've always tried to make sure that Epic as a sort of a synonymous with quality. So I wasn't going to necessarily just go for anything, and just say that'll do. We'll stick an Epic name on that. I did think very long and hard about them being a partner, because I really feel that the quality is there.
Yeah, that's cool. So if people want to see any more about that, 'cause this interview will be going live midweek, so it'll have time for the website to go live and what have you. What's the best way for them to search that? Just to search Epic Gear on? Yeah,
so the URL should be, hopefully by the time it goes out, epic-gear.com.
Okay.
We've got a Facebook site set up. We've got a small Instagram set up currently as well. I have to be honest, because this is such a new area for us, I have had to sit down and put some proper business strategy thinking in place, which is slightly counterintuitive for me, where I've always just gone on my instinct. I have had to think a little bit harder on this one, which is kind of a little bit late because the gear's already here. So yeah, I probably should have done that the other way around. But on the other hand, we wanted the stuff here, and we can learn the lessons once it's here. Actually came over from Hong Kong very quickly. But yeah, I'm learning a lot about the retail element, wholesaling. I was speaking to one of my guys, Tim Wood, who's over in East Anglia, and he's had a long experience in sort of retail and wholesaling supply, and he was a phenomenal font of knowledge when we were talking the other day, and very grateful to that level of support. And it's just learning, learning about that industry and learning how we can fit in. we can fit in with it. But a lot of people have been very, very helpful to me on that. Very grateful for them for that support and help. Because as I say, it is a new area, and I'm never that concerned about making mistakes, because it's a great way for me to try and avoid making them more than once. And I'm sure we'll make plenty along the way. I do cringe slightly at our website. It's I'll call it functional for now. It's not a visual spectacular, that's for sure. But
it's functional and durable, like the kit that it'll be.
Yeah, you can go on, you can order
advertising
it, you can buy it.
That's it.
That happens.
That's all it needs. So in the meantime, all you've got to do then is basically try and keep your hands off the kit and stop yourself just using all your stock.
No idea
for
how tempting that is. I just look at it and go, oh, that's nice. In fact, we Michael Turner was picking up some kit last Sunday, and he said, "Oh, I really like this woven shirt. I think I'll be an extra large." And I was like, "Oh, damn, that's the one I wanted." So I need to get over that side of things as well, because it makes more sense to sell it than to have it in a box or have it in my wardrobe.
It probably did you a favour then.
Sorry?
It probably did you a favour then by taking.
He probably did. He probably did, because it is very, very tempting.
That's good though. It's good that you're in a position where you feel that you can start new things as well as juggle Epic at the same time. Both sort of branches of Epic, photography and now the gear as well. Right, Richard. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us for this episode. It's been good to have you on here. Hopefully you've also enjoyed the experience as well. Kevin, thank you very much for also joining us.
No problem.
Taking time out of your busy schedule. So anyone who's not already got a subscription for the magazine, Obstacle Race Magazine, don't forget to get over to obstacleracemagazine.com, because the subscriptions as they are at the moment will be changing in about a week's time. We'll be going for the more simpler format that we use throughout the year. So if you want the bargains that are basically, you can get a Nuclear Racers ticket and a Spartan ticket and a load of kit and your Obstacle Race Magazine subscription to the magazine for like $69.99. It's an absolute no-brainer. The ticket for one of those events alone would cost you more than that, and you can
pay it in 2 instalments as well.
Exactly. It's a no-brainer. It's absolute madness that they hadn't already gone. I don't understand it. But anyway, people are obviously being tight. But yeah, so jump on that. Jump on the website, obstacleracemagazine.com, to see what offers we do have. If you do want to keep up with the adventures of us and Obstacle Race Magazine, you can also subscribe for free on the website by selecting the digital subscription. If you haven't already, don't forget to get signed up for Mud 7, because on the 1st of March will be our next price rise. So the tickets will cost you £5 extra after that date. So mud7.com. Don't forget to jump on that as quickly as possible. Also, if you listen to this podcast right now and you've not yet subscribed to the podcast on the directory you're listening through, don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you get the notification of each episode going live as and when it does. It helps us out a hell of a lot. It gets us up the directories and up the charts a little bit further. So we really do appreciate it. And if you haven't yet and your directory allows it, please go over and give us a bit of a review, because that also helps massively as well. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Richard, have you got anything to say on closing out?
No, thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity. I hope everyone who listens is looking forward to a great 2020 season of racing.
Yes, I definitely echo that as well. I'm eager to get the season underway now. Kevin, anything?
We launched the podcast at the wrong time, didn't we, when there's no events, but it's going to come thick and fast very soon.
Yeah, but it's giving us opportunity to dip our toe in rather than going full bore and trying to juggle everything at once. Anyone who's subscribed, who's listening to this, the next magazine is coming very soon. We're now not going to be waiting for the vests to come in. So unfortunately, obviously coronavirus outbreak has caused absolutely huge issues in terms of supply chains and what have you. So we're just going to get that magazine out to you now. We're going to get that finished off before the end of February, get it sent out to people, and then when the vests arrive and the T-shirts, we're just going to get them sent out then. it's obviously not ideal for us in terms of posting them out to you, but we also don't want you to be waiting for your next for the first issue of the year any longer. So everyone who's been patient with that, thank you. So the first issue is obviously a spring issue that will be with you now. Looking at the timeline, expect it towards the end of February, beginning of March. So perfect timing for spring. And yeah, so thank you very much for joining us, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And we'll speak again in a few more days. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
gents. Thanks. Bye.